Hey folks, John Kelly, welcome back. Law enforcement life coach with your Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast. Hey guys, I remember I told you subject matter experts, right? No bullshit. We're jumping into suicide today, but in a way that you may not expect. I've got Dr. Olivia Johnson, and she has been doing the job of providing insight and educating the individual and agencies, all things suicide, suicide prevention, and how we get ahead of this. Retired Leo, military veteran, has been serving this community since day one. She is the founder of the Blue Wall Institute, which is doing some amazing research and work when it comes to suicide and suicide prevention and coming up with real world solutions to addressing this problem. And so we're going to dive into a whole bunch of stuff. And so without further ado, I'm sitting down with Olivia Johnson. Olivia, it's great to see you.
Ditto, John. How are you?
I'm doing so much better that you said yes. I know you're a busy woman. You got a lot going on. And I'm like, let me see if Olivia is up for a little chat. And I'm glad you made the time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no
So,
worries.
so we talk, right? Let's just like jump right into it. We talk about suicide and there's a misconception out there that you and I have talked about, and part of it is something that this is something that happens to us that we're helpless. It's just it's so sad. It overpowers, and there's no coming back from it. And you're calling bullshit on that. You're calling bullshit on that. Talk to me about just
Yeah.
the premise running out of the gate.
Yeah, well, I mean, you nailed it. We act like we don't have any personal responsibility in any of the things that lead up to a suicide. Suicide's a negative outcome, but there are many other things that happen along this way that should be getting, attention, and red flags should be going up left and right to alert somebody that something's not right. We wait until something bad happens, and then we all kind of sit around and go, wow, I didn't see that coming. Right.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
we take away, again, it's a lot of things. The verbiage, we tell people they can't say committed suicide. It's just not. It makes us feel bad. And I'm like, but there's nothing wrong with saying committed. Again, when you start changing the verbiage and making people feel bad about what they say and how they express it, you take away the personal responsibility from the individual who's no longer here. You don't just die by suicide. I say it out of respect for families, but it's not like one day you just don't wake up, right? So we got to be really careful about how we verbalize things, because we want to make the families feel good, John. But here's the problem: is when we start placing these issues on everybody else, we don't place the blame back on the individual, and we don't talk about the responsibility that we have as individuals in our own health and wellness.
To your point, suicide isn't something that happens to us. It's something that we do. It's action I take.
Yes, whether of sound mind or not. And yes,
Yeah.
it's sad. But see, what happens in many of these cases, which people don't understand, is when we have a suicide, it's often the survivors that are left that other people start blaming for what happened. Oh, if she hadn't have left him, if he or she hadn't filed for divorce, if this and this and this didn't happen, they would be here. And it's like, time out. See, this was an act that an individual took upon themselves to do, whether of sound mind or not. So once we start removing and trying to change that verbiage, it places blame on everyone around us.
We're living in an alternate universe now.
Right. Right. I mean, it's definitely sad, but what happens is when we do that, being able to place blame on other people then removes me from the blame, the individual themselves, and it also seems to make other people feel better, like they can now blame something for this happening. And it's like, okay, guys, again, let's look at this differently. What we're doing is not working. Is this an epidemic? No, it is not an epidemic. Statistically speaking, we could have thousands of officers a year die by suicide, and it still wouldn't be an epidemic.
No.
So we need to stop using those kind of verbiages to get people upset and get them in this fear response, and start educating them and using the proper wording. Stop with the false narratives, stop perpetuating these lies, and get to the front of it. And what we need to do is spend more money, time, and energy on things like personal relationships, how to keep your relationship happy and healthy and strong, right?
Right,
How to
right.
build. I mean, because think about this. We did a study with the blue wall, and we said we took these fatal 10 and we started asking officers like what was the major three issues that they were facing in their life, and they said communication issues, lack of intimacy, and finances. Now if you have a communication issue, number one, it could be due to financial problems, but you're not going to have any kind of intimacy in that relationship. Over time you start to grow apart. What we noticed is that they started arguing and bickering over silly stuff every day. They started name calling, major arguments, fighting, infidelity, and eventually the relationship broke apart and they went their own ways, or something bad happened, God forbid, right? So,
Olivia,
I
Olivia,
mean,
I I say that I had 3 attempts on my life when I was on the job, and in no of those attempts did they come close to killing me than I did, killing myself during my infidelity and my almost breakup with Nicole. All my decisions, but
right.
the shame and disgrace and the despair, all of my making is real, and it's so hopeless, and it's so avoidable if we just put the
It
work
is.
into not being a piece of shit.
Well, and it's like, I think we get caught up too. And being a realist, I think at times you have to step back and go, okay, listen, we're human, man, and we do stupid shit and we mess up, and guess what? Everybody's going to be there to remind us of it, right? Even though they forget what they've done. And what I always say is,
Yeah.
I think sometimes we get into these relationships, and I'm not giving excuses here, but I see people that would have never done some of these things, and now they're doing things, and this risky behavior is coming out, and they're trying to get that feeling like they're just alive, right? They're not wanting to go over the top. They just want to be alive.
Right.
And they feel like this void. And when they start doing things like the infidelity, man, it might make them feel alive in that moment. It might make them feel like they're back there where they have something to live for, if you will, right? Maybe the relationship has struggled and they've reached out, not saying that it's okay, but they've done that. In the moment, it might be
Make you
fun and
feel
exciting.
appreciated.
Right. It's fun and exciting. It's got its purpose for that moment. And what's not
Right.
fun and exciting is when you get caught or you have to be accountable for those behaviors.
Right.
Right. I always say, we don't want to do the hard work, but I'll tell you what, we drive to the end of the state to have an affair with somebody. I mean, it's
Isn't
just
it
we put in the
crazy?
it's
Crazy.
it
Had I
is.
had Olivia, had I put 10% of the energy into my relationship with my wife, I would have been a rock star. I would have been I would have saved a lot of people a lot of pain and heartache. And
Yeah, but
we
and
get it
and
backwards.
that's okay. I think a lot of us do. And that's the thing I think is so I think what people need to understand is we live in a disposable society. Everything is I want it now. If I can't have it now, whatever, I'll go get something else. And we throw things away. And I always say, sometimes the best and most important things in our lives, like our relationships, they're going to struggle. They're not perfect. I don't want to have to live in a perfect world where everything I do is being watched under a microscope. I'm not perfect and I never will be.
Right.
So I think sometimes having those flaws in our relationship that make us grow stronger and understand why we did those things help us to grow as individuals and as a couple, and being able to forgive easily and understand that, I need a lot of forgiveness. I mean, Jesus, I am part Irish, I'm part Swedish. I like to be right. I'm a Taurus. I mean, I like to, I
Uh,
mean, it's a negative, right?
awesome.
But
Yeah.
we're those people. I'm those people.
Right.
We've
Right.
all done stuff, but the idea that we can win at work and we have to win at work by all means, and then at home it's like it's me against you. It should be a win-win at home.
Right.
Everybody is fighting for you. They're supporting you. We need to be doing the work at home and stop using the excuse that we're too tired. We don't have this. We don't have that. It's either an excuse, right? It's important, or it's an excuse, and that's the
Right.
truth.
Right. And that's, I think so. You're not just coming up with this stuff because you read an article in Time magazine, right? I mean,
No.
I remember when I first, after retirement, I sat down with you and we talked, and I was just like, holy cow, man, this woman knows what the hell she's talking about. You- you're not, you know, you're not going to somebody else for these numbers and these statistics. You tell me a little bit about the foundation that allows you to so confidently talk about something that a lot of people have an opinion about, but
Right.
few people can speak factually.
Right. So I am former law enforcement military, but you know, I didn't really realize this was a problem either when I was working. That's part of the problem. And again, it's a problem, not an epidemic. But I didn't realize that it was one of the leading killers, meaning something we should look at. So I started researching it about 15 years ago. And the more I looked, I started seeing case after case. And it was just kind of problematic that we just keep doing the same thing. And here we are 15 years later. And now we're just making up new slogans and it's okay not to be okay. And it's like, come on, guys. If the reason we have those slogans, number one, is because those people don't know what else to do. That right? And they're
Yeah,
experts.
yeah.
So we forgive that, but we say, listen, we can't, this is not the best. And we can't give this to our first responders. We need to do something different. And throwing a number out every other day is not helping the cause because it's not in context.
43. Now we're at
Right. Right.
47. And
And what does that do? Number one, there's no context. Many of those cases are not legitimate. Many of them are duplicated. I mean, let's not even go right. Let's not even
right.
go there. That's the reason that I don't put out a number because we do things differently. So I have the only database in the world that tracks law enforcement and corrections. So active, sworn, retired, and former officers, right? As far back as 1930s, our first case of verified suicide through Cook County. We literally fill in that gap up to present day, but we apply for autopsy, toxicology, police reports, social media accounts, any lawsuits, pending litigation. If the family does an interview, a psychological autopsy on every single case, because these are not numbers. These are people, and we honor them through our research. So regardless of if it was a pending divorce or something on the job that happened, or they were facing criminal charges due to something, really horrendous, the families left behind deserve us to at least honor their loved one, because regardless of what they did, we need to understand how they got there, right? And
How they got there.
yes. Because
Yes.
even when we talk about those criminal things, you don't come in and become a criminal. You come in with criminal tendencies and you become better at it. So there are certain things that we don't want to talk about when we talk about our fatal 10, which are those 10 factors that came out of the data. But those are extremely important, and they're not mind blowing, but they really can apply to anyone, right?
You say that, so and with your permission, I use the fatal 10 to say, this is why when you don't address life in a balanced way, the fatal 10 is life.
Yes.
The fatal 10 is every day waking up and doing something positive in each of those areas so you don't fall victim to taking your own life because you're doing the work on the front end. When people hear about the fatal 10, and I start my presentations always with relationships, because it's the seems to be the thing, and half of the suicides that we see in the first responder community, at least half of them are the result of a breakup, or that seems to be the tipping point, right?
Yes.
The dissolving of a relationship in some
Right.
regard.
Or the belief that it was going to dissolve because of something that they did. So again, perception can be very tricky when we talk about that. But what you must remember is the top two fatal 10s, we have interpersonal relationship issues and substance abuse and addiction. Those are the top two for anyone, not just first responders,
Right.
which is why we say this isn't a first responder problem, it's a people problem. And a lot of times we don't want to be, we're not them. Those people do, when they do drugs, it's because they're junkies and losers. And when we do it, it's because of the stress in our lives and the trauma.
They haven't seen what I've seen.
Right. And I'm like, number one, there are many children that suffer from PTSD and traumatic events. I suffered from childhood trauma and certain things that have happened to me. But again, I own that and I have to be responsible.
I would say that would be more damaging because you're at that age, you don't have any coping skills.
Right. Right. And then you carry that, and then one day it might be triggered again while you're working. Right? And I believe that a lot of that, I think there's a lot more of that than we can account for, even though we look for that in the data, that adverse childhood experience. I believe it's there more often than we can physically see. The people that we could get the information from are no longer here. Their loved ones often believe it was there, but can't prove it.
And they
So,
don't want to tarnish the memory and
right,
all that
right.
bullshit. Right,
And
right.
we get that, but it's like, in order to reduce numbers and get people thinking about this differently, we have to look at the big picture. And in order to look at big picture stuff, you can't just take the good, right? It can't just be
Right,
everything
right.
we do good, everything we do bad does not matter now. It doesn't work like that.
No.
And that's where we fail. We get really upset and defensive when people want to talk about what we might have done wrong or what we could do differently. And that's the part that we say, listen, this is how we grow, right? This is how we grow.
Yeah. We
I
got to
mean,
look at it through a different lens.
yeah, the honest one. Like, I can
Right.
go to work every day and tell everybody, man, life's great, life's great, life's great. Or one day I go and we get in an argument. My husband, man, he was being a jerk today. He was being a jerk. There's two sides to every story.
Right.
We only tell the one that makes us shine in the best light.
Right.
And over time, when we start to kind of like that truth isn't truth anymore, we don't know what is true. And we just got to get back to the basics, right? We've got to get back to understanding a few things that we need to address. Number one, suicide is not an epidemic, it's a problem. Guess what? So is domestic violence and police, so is substance abuse, so is addiction. Those are all issues that usually happen before something bad, that we can't come back from, like a suicide.
Yeah, the statistic isn't alcohol, isn't it so like joined at the hips with the act? The
It's
abuse and the act, the abuse of a substance, isn't that relationship that's almost inseparable?
Well, a lot of times, depending on what cases we can get, you have to understand some states are closed cases. We may never know whether there was a
Mm,
substance because we can't get records. But that was the second leading issue we noted in the data.
mm,
We had one case where the gentleman had a BAC 7 times the legal limit, and this was
mm.
a common. So alcohol is a big issue, but so are other drugs. In fact, not only do we look at suicides, we look at murder suicides, non-fatal attempts, and in a separate database, we look at accidental overdose deaths. And I'm talking things like fentanyl, cocaine. We had liquid morphine stolen from the hospice unit. We had guys stealing meds out of the prescription lockbox at work. So we've got problems.
Mm,
We have Our problems are no different than the people we serve. And the
sure.
sooner we get that, and sooner we understand that, we can start to have some empathy for other people as well, right?
How about that?
I mean, and it's difficult because it's really one of those things that pulls at your heart when you're working a first responder occupation. When you talk about those things, a lot of times we don't want to see that as criminal activity. That's an addiction issue. And it's like, but it is criminal in some cases. So let's
Right,
talk about, we got to talk about these things.
right.
And I think the more human that we can become and understand how we got there, understanding that maybe there was some past trauma, maybe it started as an issue with an injury and we got addicted, whatever the case, we've got to be honest about those issues and how we got here.
Do you think so? When I speak, I talk about, I was very fortunate. I had some supervisors that gave me a pass on criminal activity, showing up to work drunk, drinking and driving. And their initial response wasn't to condemn me. It was to find out why. Finding out why and pumping the brakes for a second and offering a second chance, a do-over, right? Not endless, but like a second chance, provided me the opportunity to grow and change.
Right.
When we don't do that, right? When everything is criminal, when everything is career ending, when everything is the finality of that kind of feeds into what we're trying to prevent, doesn't it, a little bit?
It does, and it prevents people coming forward that need help. By the time you find a first responder that's in an addiction issue, you've already got a severe problem. By the time that they let the guard down and things like that start happening at work where you show up under the influence, we've got a serious problem. The boat has literally left the bay. We haven't seen it in a while. We've got a serious issue. So the idea of, we don't want to turn a blind eye, but we need to address it in a way that's not necessarily punitive if possible, because we've invested a lot of time and money in these people. And there's obviously a problem here. And whether they're still working at the agency or they're not, we're still dealing with them as a citizen of this city that we're working in, the jurisdiction. So we owe it to the family to at least try to take care of this issue.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's the idea that maybe some of these leaders don't understand how those things work without, like, it's either punitive or nothing. We're very black and white thinkers.
It's insane. There is no
It's
listen,
the,
I spoke, I sat with some agency leaders a couple weeks ago, and they were like, "Oh no, the boss, if you get pinched for DUI, you're done." I'm like, this guy, does he walk on water? This guy, does he not own a mirror? I mean, that's pretty that's
but I
pretty
will say,
black and white,
and
you
I will
know?
say this though, I have those kind of standards too. So I'm like, one of these people. Like I had a family member that would always drive around under the influence, and it just when I was younger, and it scared me enough to go, listen, this is not okay.
Right.
And so for me, I go, you know how I can prevent a DUI from happening to me? I don't drink and drive. I don't have a sip of beer. Because see, here again, we're giving an excuse to the behavior, and we have to be really careful about that because that line again becomes very slippery. So, for example, the citizen that gets you pulled over for a DUI is told your ignorance of the law is no excuse, blah blah blah. In this town, we arrest DUIs, but when we do it, we want an excuse that now we have an addiction problem, or so
See,
we have
but
to be.
see, my argument to that would be, I have driven more people
Yeah, but that,
more friends of, hey, yeah, you're
ditto.
not driving tonight.
No, but and I have too, but you know what the truth is that's an excuse for poor behavior because you know the outcome. And with things like Uber and ride shares and all of these other
Right,
things, see, we've got to be able to have a point where we say, listen, this is a no-go.
right.
And this is one of those things that you're not making good decisions, you're not making sound decisions. So that would be a one-time thing. You get a DUI, it would be like, listen, you're going into treatment, you're doing A, B, and C, or this is a job loss
That's
situation.
all I want.
Yeah,
That's all I
you
want.
get
An
options.
opportunity, an
Right.
opportunity to address the underlying problem.
Pending that there were no major legal ramifications and no one
Yeah,
was
just
killed,
there's nobody
whatever.
stuck underneath your car as you're
Right.
driving home.
But now you think about this. Let's think about the next 10 guys that follow you or gals that follow you getting a DUI wanting the same thing. How does that, number one, reflect on the agency? So again, big picture, we've got to kind of step back for a second and say, listen, I don't want the agency breathing down my throat, but guess what? Anything I do on or off duty is a reflection of me as an officer within this agency.
Right.
So we have to have a balance there. And I think the big thing with the balance is that it's standardized in the way we treat people. I've seen
Right.
so many agencies give a golden child a pass where no one would know that DUI happens, whip it under the rug real quick, take care of everything, get them what they need to get, done, put them back in the agency. No one is the wiser. The next person is terminated. So in order to address some of these issues, we have to make sure that we're standardized in how we treat everybody, and it's all the same, regardless of how well liked they are in the agency.
100%. No, that's a tall order
It
because
is, but you know what? There's
you're dealing with that the transparency from leadership that we want to do is make sure that the people in our ranks are healthy, right?
well, and here's the thing. The time that you're not transparent or you don't treat people the same, no one else is coming forward.
Right.
So that's why they need to take this extra, it's really important. It's like going, we had a suicide and man, what a really nice person. And we feel really bad about it. We're going to honor them. We're going to do this plaque and we're going to do this walk. And then you have another suicide 2 years later, not so well liked. Guess what? Nothing happens. But guess what? That individual still has a family. They have friends in the agency. And what did you tell them? That life didn't matter. So we have to standardize the things that we do in our agencies for transparency purposes so that you're treating everybody fair and equitable. The same thing that we tell officers to do on the street, you need to
Right.
be doing in your agency.
Right. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I we start talking about how people are treated, and when we start talking about just because the situation is emotional doesn't mean we need to respond to it emotionally. That makes sense, right?
Yes.
Like, so there couldn't be anything sadder than somebody taking their own life and not being here. And at that point, just looking at that in and of itself, the whys and all that doesn't matter. They're not here. They're gone.
Right.
They're not coming back. It's done. The harm that has been caused is so widespread and far reaching, and it's never leaving people's soul. That we know. But with that being said, the people in the room that should be thinking with their brains and not their hearts start making decisions that actually, I don't want to say promote you killing yourself, but they make it more of an option when we have, like, say, for an example, legislation that's being passed that says if you kill yourself, we're going to consider it an in the line of duty death. And financially, we're going to take care of your family and this and that. And holy
Yeah.
smokes, you just answered my prayers. If I'm thinking about killing myself, you just guaranteed in my mind that I can't take care of my family. I'm a piece of shit. But if I kill myself, you're going to, and they're going to be all right now.
And that, and it's sad. I've
Oof.
seen this, and it's scary. And I'll tell you, I've asked cops across the country when I mention this legislation and say, "What are your thoughts?" And they immediately go to the same thing that I said. This is going to push somebody that's already sitting on the edge into a direction, because I can walk into a room of 400 or 500 cops and I'll say things like, "Raise your hand if you have a will. Raise your hand if you have a living will. Raise your hand if you have life insurance." And I'm going to tell you, it's just a small handful that ever have these things done. Guess what happens after a suicide? Most of these families who are widows that are left behind, that may not be a primary breadwinner, now have to think about moving out of this house because they get one last check and they have no life insurance. Now they are forced into a situation that they did not expect, nor did they see coming.
Right.
And you're throwing in maybe 100 to 300,000 plus to a family. Listen, that's a lot of money. That's paying off your house. That's paying off additional bills. That may seem like the right thing to do, but I'm telling you, that is a very dangerous place to go. We did not think this through. We did not think about the repercussions of people actually contemplating taking their lives now. We didn't think any of this through long term. What we did is we had people calling me saying, "Man, we're really winning this fight. We've been fighting for this for years. Isn't this great? We're getting legislation passed and money." And I'm like, "No, that's
Did
not
they
great."
did they know who they were talking to?
They did, but they must have thought that I was going to agree. And I said, "Listen, I have to politely disagree with you." And I mean, I had someone from a major agency, a chaplain, that called me and said, "Man, we've been really, I can't believe this finally came through. Aren't you happy?" And I said, "Well, let's talk about this. I don't agree with this." I didn't even know it was like literally at the point of becoming legislation. I thought
Right,
it was
sure.
still kind of being talked about. And once I gave this individual kind of my take on it, they went, "Wow, that's a really neat perspective." And I thought, well, we have to think about this. We don't want to go backwards in what we're trying to do here, which is prevent the loss of life. Cops are planners. If I was sitting here contemplating taking my life, and that was another thing that would help my family, I wouldn't think twice. And I hate to say it like that, but we've got to start being honest and start looking at some of these things factually and understanding that there are repercussions to
Right.
these actions. And why we do what we do, John, is to keep this from happening to other families.
Mm,
We feel for these families. That's
right.
why we do what we do so strongly, because we don't want this to happen to another family. But we really need to consider some of these things, and we need to bring in experts in many other genres to discuss these kind of topics.
Yeah, I think again, like, which kind of begs the question, like, how how does something like this get passed without the opposing view? I mean, these are, listen, fairly well educated people, all with great intentions, right? Great intentions. But I mean, you can't get a friggin' traffic light posted at a four-way intersection down the end of the street without an act of Congress, right? Go engineering studies get conducted for years. We count the number of cars going through the intersection and how is it going to disrupt traffic flow? That's
Right.
what we do for a traffic light.
Well, this feeds on fear. This feeds on
Mm.
people in that emotional state that we need to help these widows, which we do, but we needed to think about how we do that with
Well, how
these
about we
families.
educate everyone on the importance of life insurance?
Life insurance, the importance of your relationship, right?
Yeah,
Keeping it
yeah,
strong and healthy. The
yeah.
the importance of the fatal 10 before we have these issues, right?
Right,
But understanding that, again, some of these false narratives are being fed into the media to feed on people's heartstrings to say, "Listen, we've got to stop for a moment and reconsider that this could lead to additional deaths," which was what we were fighting against to begin with,
right.
and look at it in a different manner, in a different way.
Somebody well intended is playing checkers and not chess, and they didn't see this move, and they've just undermined, potentially undermined, an initiative that's keeping people alive by
Absolutely.
offering up this monetary gain if you
Yes.
cease to exist. Um,
Yes.
Getting back to the fatal 10. So we talked about relationships. and substance abuse, right? Those are things in every demographic around the world. One that, as I stare at my gun wall in my office, um, access to firearms. It's one of those sleepers. It's one of those just like we gloss over it.
Oh,
Uh,
I don't, but a lot of people do
we do, we do.
because
It's
they
because
think we can't do anything about it, and that's where the problems come in. So number 7 on our fatal 10 is the firearms access,
yeah.
and when it's sitting there, nobody wants to address it. I don't get into a Second Amendment debate with you. I have firearms. What I'm telling you is, you know how we reduce risk of you either killing yourself or killing someone in your family or someone dying by using your firearm? We make sure that we talk about responsible gun ownership, even because we're so attuned to doing things a certain way. We're muscle memory monsters is what we are, and everything becomes that we don't think twice about it. And I said, your risk of something bad happening to you if someone in your home does something with your firearm, you just can't come back from that.
No.
So understanding that you're not the only one at risk here. Our teenagers are at risk. The 3 leading cause of death for teenagers into your lower 30s is accident. It's literally accidents, homicide, and suicide. So we've got to start looking at this differently, and we got to stop, thinking it's all about us. We have other people in our house that are just as much at risk than we are.
Do you know? So I've got my gun wall, right? When this is going to sound absolutely insane. If I'm out of the house for more than a day, I put everything in the safe. Not because I'm afraid of somebody stealing down. I'm fucking. This place is Fort Knox. Um, I've got a 25-year-old daughter who is a 25-year-old daughter who today she's feeling great, and
Right.
tomorrow the world's fucking ending over a boy. You know,
That's because kids live in the now. And see, that's what people need
right?
to understand is that moment of something bad happening or being bullied or made fun of or whatever the case may be, or a breakup, they're in the now. You got to
Yeah,
understand that moment, you've got to think about, again, we're thinking like predicting. This is risk management. We're
yeah.
predicting those things. So when you see it, my mind starts to immediately go to those risk factors because I know exactly what you're talking about. I have a family member that has mental health issues. So trust me, I am constantly aware of everything that I do, where my gun is, those things. And that's what I want people to understand is that it's very fleeting when someone is in a moment where things can seem that bad. That's how quickly the chemicals in your brain can change, that you could be fine 10 minutes ago and right now you are struggling to not take your own life. It is that
Not just a young girl, but a
right.
grown man,
Anyone,
grown ass man,
anyone.
been on the job for 30 years.
Yes. And see, it's not all mental health issues either. It could be a crisis they're dealing with and they've been blocked into a corner where they don't feel that they have options. And
Mm.
it becomes the way that we start thinking. So we try to kind of get them out of that black and white, that dichotomous, that very rigid thinking that it's either right or wrong, and start thinking about problem solving and how this can look differently tomorrow. Sleep on it for a freaking day,
Well,
right?
there's a reason why we have that saying, right?
Yes.
Sleep on it. Nobody ever says stay up all night and think
And
about
no
it.
one
They
ever
say
listen.
sleep on it.
Right. And no one ever comes out of a crisis thinking clearly. When you're in a crisis mode, your brain, it's almost like you have the tunnel vision that everything starts to close up and your ability to think rationally and in a timely manner to make sense of it is gone. It's not even there.
Doesn't exist.
No. And it's very important that people step back from that because when you're under extreme stress, you're not thinking clearly. You're not meant to in that moment. You're not there to articulate shit. It's like the fight or flight, right? It's there to save your life in a moment to maybe take cover or do whatever you need to do. But in that moment, you're not there to articulate things. That's why you need that moment of clarity.
That whole prefrontal cortex shut down. It's not even,
Yes.
it's non-existent.
Yes.
Non-existent. And you're thinking with the emotion, the complete emotional part of
Your
your
emotion,
brain.
and this is what we need to come back to again, full circle.
Yeah.
Emotions lie to you. Emotions lie to you. You have feelings, right? And you have
Right.
emotions, but sometimes those feelings that you have and the way that you react to them, they're not being honest with you. So you're feeding into that instead of looking at facts, right? You're feeding on the feeling of it and you're reading into it. It's like, man, I posted something on Facebook and she didn't respond to me. She must be mad at me. It's like maybe she was just fucking busy. Like, calm down.
Right.
But
Right.
that's where we get to. We don't want the facts. We go on how we feel because we think we can trust our judgment, but yet we can be in a moment of crisis and not and literally trust how we're feeling, that it's okay to move on with the next step here. So we've got to calm down for a minute and realize that
That
our feelings
spiral
affect
starts
us.
happening really
Yes,
quick,
yes.
like
And then
in a matter of a minute. Like,
oh, there was a study done. It was called the Golden Hour, and they actually took a group of people who had actually attempted suicide and survived. And within, they asked them, we don't want to know the why. We want to know the time frame from the event occurring to you trying to take your life. The majority were within 60 minutes, and a smaller percentage within 5 minutes of an event. Now,
so
this
much
is
for
one.
thinking it over.
Well, here's the thing. This
Holy
is why
smokes.
I truly believe that prevention and interventions do not work. Number one, we put a lot of money, time, and energy into these things, and the return on investment is extremely low. Our suicide numbers keep going up. So we do the fatal 10 and we look at a new paradigm called the inoculation paradigm. We
Yes.
know we're all going through this swamp of crap, right? Once we get in the police academy, we have this kind of buy into the culture, this adaptation to how life's going to be and the dysfunction. We inoculate you against what we expect you to see. We predict the things you're going to see because most of us go through it. We inoculate you, you go through these things, you come out the other side with less issues, number one, because we prepared you properly for what you were going to experience and not hope that you didn't have an issue
Give
and
you
then
the
hope
skills
that,
to cope and address and to be
yes,
resilient and
yeah, it's it's the basic stuff that people need to know are going to happen, and
mm,
not lying to them or deceiving them, just hoping that it won't. And then when something happens, they think they're going crazy and they don't know where to turn.
right. No, and I that and again, that's all part of your program is this vaccination of
Yeah,
sorts.
vaccination, inoculation. If and we want to start with anyone. Like we're looking at the fatal 10, it actually overlaps on literally every other occupation. There may be a couple things that we tweak, and I think we talked about this. So like if we took that and we laid that fatal 10 on top of a veterinarian, we know that they have high suicide rates. Their
Sure.
means change. They still use firearms at times, but it's usually euthanasia drugs. Another component
Something
that
that they have
access
access
to.
to.
That's what it's about, right? So the other component that would change would be including in there a huge financial component for student loan debt. And you know how I think about this? It's not rocket science, folks. So if we know that they have a high student loan debt ratio and that their ability to pay off this high student loan in a timely manner is very limited and it's very costly and it's going to cause them a lot of issues, then we go to the schools where they have veterinary medicine and we take the fatal 10 there and we talk about ways that we can set them up for success, pay off their loans, faster, and find ways to get around some of these additional stressors that they have.
Right.
And it's that simple.
Some
It's common
financial
sense.
literacy, right? I mean, like,
Yes, yes, early
don't need to
on.
keep it a secret.
Yeah, because what everybody thinks is they have this perception, they feel that they're going to run into veterinary medicine, they're going to be saving all these animals, and they're playing with puppies all day. And they know, when you get into the reality of you're euthanizing animals all the time, people are yelling at you and bullying you online and telling you that you should have paid, you taken care of this for free.
Right.
They have loans. So again, it's this constant turmoil. It's things that we don't expect as cops to understand, but other people in those fields do.
No,
So,
it's a, once you take a step back, people love their pets more than they love people. So if I give you my pet, that's a family member that I'm expecting you
right,
to give back to me in one piece, right?
right,
And when that doesn't happen because shit happens,
right.
that's a shit storm of emotion and
Oh yeah,
despair. You're on
yeah.
the receiving end of that all day. You're like an ER doctor, only worse.
Exactly. See, everybody has stress and trauma in some way.
Yeah.
And the idea that in fact, we don't even have some of the highest suicide rates. I mean, we're looking at loggers and fishermen and other, when we talk about suicide rates. So we've got to understand that this is human problems.
Speaking to human problem, there is one of the fatal 10 that I think is universal to all walks of life and almost all age groups, and that's sleep or not getting adequate sleep. Speak to the role that because I'm fascinated about
Yeah.
sleep. And it's like when I was in it, I didn't realize that suicide was an issue. And when I was in it, I didn't realize the role that sleep deprivation played in my lack of wellness. I mean, it's huge. And we kind of walk around like, yeah, I haven't been to bed in a day and a
Right.
half. It's kind of like Johnny Big Balls. Like somehow I'm high speed, low drag, and
Right.
it's some sort of badge of honor, that I'll sleep tomorrow.
Yeah, and you don't
Um,
make up sleep. And that's, I think,
no,
no, and I think what we need to understand is that sleep health is what rejuvenates the brain and gets you back into feeling good tomorrow. And if you're not doing that, you get used to being that person that drinks six, pots of coffee and the energy drinks to stay awake. And after a while, you're just not tired. You're gonna hit a spot where at some point you're just awake again, or maybe you're abusing other drugs. That it's there as well, but
right,
sleep is so important. And we noted that a lot of our cases were using drugs for insomnia. Some were up for several days at a time. They weren't thinking clearly. They became paranoid. Their behaviors were not rational. So, how do you expect a non rational person to now make rational decisions, right? And then on top of that, they're abusing other substances. They're affecting the relationships. So they're fighting. See, the family member is not picking up on the fact that maybe the reason that maybe I'm being a jackass is because I haven't slept in 3 days and I feel like crap, and they don't get that. What they think is, why are they being a damn jerk? Like,
right,
and then after a while they internalize that it's something that they did, right? And instead of understanding that the first responder is not making adequate decisions sometimes in their lives, and they're used to this dysfunction, it's kind of where we operate sometimes very well,
sure,
right? we,
sure,
we can we can go for a long time, or doing things that don't really have a serious effect on us, and we're good at that. What happens is, and where we get caught up, is when the bad behavior or the questionable behavior and the dysfunction catches up with us, especially through like health issues, right?
yeah.
Having an accident, tripping and falling, whatever it is, it will eventually catch up with you, and when it does, it can be catastrophic.
I think I read somewhere like if you miss 3 nights of adequate sleep, and let's define what adequate sleep is. 7 to 9 hours is adequate sleep.
Depending on your age, yeah, it'll go up and down. Kids need more, older people, not so much. So yeah, between 7, 8, 9 hours of
So what do you
good
so what do you
restful.
so what are you saying? So what are you saying? What does John
Well,
Kelly need? I'm
I would say
56.
that
What do
you
I
probably
need?
need between 7 and 8 hours of good restful sleep, though, and that's
Yes.
where the question comes in,
Right.
right?
Well, and I've taken that real seriously. I have like a CPAP machine, like because I was waking up unbeknownst to me, you know, 30 times an hour because I would stop breathing. Right.
Right.
So I've now I mask on, I'm nothing to look at, there's no sexy time with Mrs. Kelly here. Right. She takes a look at the mask and she's like, okay, yeah, I'll see
Right.
you later, kid. But I am out, KO'd, and I wake up 7, 8 hours later, completely restored,
So
refreshed,
that's
ready
I'm
to go.
happy for you.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
happy for you. I don't.
yeah.
My husband
She's
snorts
she's real
horribly.
happy too. It's one less
Yeah.
thing she has to worry about.
No, and I think one of the things that really hangs us up on the sleep is not necessarily, a lot of there's some medical issues there, but one of the biggest reasons I truly believe we're not getting the adequate sleep in our first responder populations is our use of alcohol, right?
Right.
So the use of alcohol, guys, 2 alcoholic beverages a night, and ladies, one, keeps us getting not getting into that REM sleep, that rapid eye movement, that deep restful sleep. Because
Sure.
who drinks one or two drinks, right? That's the real issue.
Yeah.
So it helps us get to sleep, or helps us be more comfortable and relaxed. But what happens is once the alcohol wears off, we wake up, or once we have to use the restroom, we wake up.
Mm.
So there's a constant vicious cycle that we can't break. And guess what? We're not going to quit drinking. So it's kind of like, do you want one or do you want the other? And I really tell people, listen, if you're having such a serious issue and it really is this alcohol thing, or maybe that you're eating or drinking too late in the night where it's going to catch up with you,
Right.
maybe take a week off or 3 to 4 days with no alcohol and see how you sleep. Now, they'll fight you because they don't want to do that, because they think it helps them get to sleep, which it does. So again, what I tell them is this: it's working for you now, short term, but abusing alcohol over time like this every single night, it'll get you to sleep. It'll also get you a lot of other health problems that you weren't expecting.
Right.
That's where it catches us. And those are the things that you can't lie to yourself anymore once they start happening.
Yeah. There was a book, Walker, Why We Sleep.
Okay.
Really interesting. He's a neuroscientist. And he does this deep dive on like the other health consequences of not getting adequate sleep. They talk about like increased rates of cancer, dementia. Um, your brain needs this time to repair itself. And
Well,
when
yeah,
you,
I mean, think about our officers and those people that are in stressful situations all the time. You're not getting sleep. Everything's going to start startling you. You're not paying attention. Your cortisol is going to go up. You're going to have issues with weight. It's really catastrophic. And I wish people took more time to understand how important sleep is. The idea that I'll sleep when I'm dead, so to speak, is not the way that we need to operate.
yeah,
Because the truth is, you're killing yourself every single day by doing that. You're taking a little bit more off your life than you needed to.
yeah,
And I think if people could get more and more adequate sleep, they would actually feel so much better. It would change a lot of those fatal 10 components.
yeah. Matt, you're right. Matthew Walker.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I actually have that.
I'm
Yes.
sure you do. Why
I
We
wasn't sure
Sleep.
of the title, but yes.
Yep. Why We Sleep. Matthew Walker. Yeah. It's probably one of the most, right. When we look at the fatal 10, it's probably one of the most easily remediable, right?
Well, if you're doing the other things that that you need to do to make that happen, like I said with the alcohol, if you have somebody that's an avid drinker and they don't want to give that up, the chance of them
Mm,
getting good restful sleep now is minimized. And what they'll do is they'll try to take these drugs for insomnia in addition to the alcohol. And again, we run into problems with that. So
right.
meet with your doctor, get on a plan, talk about what you're doing and putting in your body, be honest about it, and see if there's something else that you can maybe get for a moment. It's not a light thing where you want to take insomnia drugs for the rest of your life. This is to get you back into a healthy pattern of sleep.
Good rhythm of sleep.
Yes, and then you get back off of those. So it's not like a lifetime thing, but
Right.
you've got to give it a little time and be honest about it.
And another one of the fatal 10 is your diet, your healthy lifestyle there that, we kind of, I think I'm hoping that people are starting to see the connectivity here that's taking place. The not one of these variables, these life variables,
Doesn't
exists
affect
on
it.
its own. They're
Yeah.
all interconnected.
And it changes on a daily basis. Listen, if I get up, let's say you get up one day and everything in your life is going great right now. You can't complain, everything's great. And then you wake up and you go to the doctor and you get a diagnosis, or you realize that your spouse has been unfaithful or something has happened, right? And the dynamics change that quickly. So what I tell people is, because life is like that, right? It's constantly moving and changing.
Quickly.
You have to make sure that you're maintaining an adequate level of wellness at all times, because one of those events can be catastrophic. And if you're not healthy and well as you sit here, getting through that event is minimized dramatically how well you get through.
Sure.
So it's really just, you can't be 100% in all those areas, but what you can do is you can take accountability for your role in those and what responsibility you have. Like even in the interpersonal relationship, let's say you're in a relationship that's really struggling. You can't fix the other person. It's not happening. I'm telling you, it's not happening.
Right.
You got to work on you. And if you work on you to the best of your ability and you realize that it's not going to change anything else, then you have some decisions to make. But you've got to stop taking responsibility for everything in the world that you think that you can control, because we are control freaks.
A
You
little
can't
bit.
control all crimes. You can't stop all bad things from happening. You are not that big, right? That's not your role. So reel it back and take care of what you can control in your own life and in your own space. And when you start doing that, you stop feeling like you have to control everything else, right? And it's like you said, one small thing a day, one small thing can be the difference between feeling good right now and being stuck in that moment of self-pity, being the victim, things are going bad for me. I give myself a moment. Listen, I have bad days like anybody else.
Sure.
Guess who doesn't call nobody calls when I have a bad day, because nobody knows I'm having a bad day, right? But I'll give myself about 10 minutes to feel sorry for myself. And then I say, get your shit together and let's do this, because there are other people in this world who are struggling more than you, that have no one to talk to, and they have a worse off situation. You're going to get through this and let's move on. And that's
Right.
part of the changing the mindset, thinking differently and letting it roll off your back, because who cares? Like,
Right.
right? I mean, and you have to, like, we have to have that mindset.
That gratitude, like being thankful for whatever, how bad today is.
Yes.
I'm still blessed because I'm here.
Well, I mean, think about it. We complain when we sit in traffic, and I have to tell myself, thank God I have a car and I don't have to get on 6 buses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's literally that
That's
simple to
simple.
think about it differently.
Yeah. And I think if you apply that across the board, you
Oh,
know, just come on. I mean, it doesn't have to be, it sounds so simple, doesn't it? It's, I mean,
and it really is. You know what it is? Is a lot of times too is our first responders. I love our first responders in our military, and the truth is sometimes they're very humble people, and they don't want to take accolades, and they don't want to take people telling them things about themselves that they're doing well. So a lot of times it's almost like we set ourselves up for failure. Like we don't want the attention in that way sometimes. And I think what we need to understand is you deserve to be happy and healthy. Your families deserve to have you be happy and healthy. You
right.
have earned it. And you live a life of sacrifice to everyone else. Start sacrificing a little bit for yourself.
Mm,
And no one else can do that for you. And I want
right.
you to be here getting mailbox money, and I want you to be enjoying your family and doing bucket list items and trips, but you can't do that, number one, if you're not here, and number two, if you're not healthy.
Right.
So I always tell them, don't beat yourself up for what you did yesterday. You can't change it. You're still responsible for those actions and the behaviors, but what you can do is change them moving forward. And the idea is our bodies are very resilient. I mean, seriously, they are very resilient.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we can take some breaks on some of that bad stuff and start to heal. And once you start in that direction, you'll start seeing the change, and it starts to change that fatal 10.
Hmm. It makes perfect sense.
I mean, who would have thought if we took care of ourselves that we would feel better? And, I
Oh
mean,
Lord. So
what we
what
do.
you're saying is, oh my God, right? But that's that eludes most of us our entire lives.
You know why? Because we know how to we take care of other people, right? But when
Right.
we need something, we don't want to ask for help. And when I mean, anything, direction, I mean, whatever it is, we don't want to ask for help because I'm like, listen,
Right.
my job isn't to fix a broken leg. My job isn't to do A, B, and C. We need other people, and we have to use other people every single day. But we get so used to thinking we're taking care of ourselves and no one else is involved in this. And we're really bad at doing that in case we haven't realized that.
We're horrible
Yeah,
at
I
that.
mean, if you mean by drinking 6, 8, 12 cans of beer a night, all right, I'm there. But guess what? Down the road, that's not going to work for us. So we need
No.
some help early on to eliminate those maladaptive coping mechanisms that really put us in the bad spot to begin with.
And circling back, those are decisions that you make every day from the moment that you wake up to the time that you go to bed.
Yes.
You
And
have complete control over that.
you do. And we get tied into that type A, and we try to justify why we do what we do. And that can be really, really dangerous because it's really difficult to get out of that cycle as well. And then you're around a bunch of people that do the same stuff that you do. We just don't talk, right? So
Rationalize unacceptable
yes,
behavior.
yes. And what I want people to understand is stop rationalizing that. What I want you to do is I want you to sit with that for a moment, that feeling of being uncomfortable and maybe not liking yourself. And just in that moment, because we've all been there,
Right.
right? The difference is I don't want to see you in 10, 15 years when you're literally going down this black hole and thinking, man, he could have turned his life around. She could have turned her life around. You got today. We've all been in those places where we regret this.
Right.
I
That's how
mean,
you
that's
do
life.
it. That's how
Yeah,
you
that's
do
how
it.
you learn.
You've got to sit there and you've got to, and if you don't love the person looking back at you, then change that. Do something about it to change that dynamic. And
Right.
you're not helpless to do that.
No, and you're
Not.
not changing the fact that you don't like you. You don't like the behaviors.
Yes.
And because we just get ingrained in doing whatever we think works right now, but we fail to realize again, big picture, years from now, we're going to pay for that.
Right.
So we need to set that example. And I'm telling you, other people that you're working with are watching you too. And when some of these people make that change, you're changing lives like you've never changed before in your own PD and in your own home.
Oh, absolutely. It just maybe takes one person
Yes.
the courage and strength and the fortitude to go, you know what? I'm done. I'm not
Yes.
doing that bullshit anymore. And this is the path I'm going to chart.
Right.
You know,
And remember, I always tell people,
follow
we're not
me.
here to be friends. Well, I'm not here to be friends with you. We're here to get a mission done, and I'm here to get you home to your family as you are me.
Right.
So we're not here to like what other people are doing in our personal lives, as long as it's healthy and whatever, it's none of our
Right.
business.
Right. Correct. No.
Yeah,
Hey, you've got some things. You were so gracious. I wanted some more information. You put out the practical considerations for preventing police suicides, and you've made that available.
correct.
I mean,
We'll make it available to all of your listeners again as
oh my
well.
goodness. Yeah, it's just we'll put some information in the show notes and all
Sure.
that, but it's just again, it's bumper stickers don't work, right?
Right.
Catchy phrases don't work. You changing your behavior
Yes.
now.
Changing how you think changes
Yes.
your behavior, changes your outcome. It's real simple. And you have to stick to it, right? So you
Yeah.
start changing how you process stuff when it comes in. Not everything's doom and gloom and you're not a victim. We don't work well there.
No,
Change how you think, change how you behave, and then you change the outcome.
I love it. I love it. I was going to ask you if there's anything that you'd like to leave us with, but I mean, your last 10 minutes have been like, I'm still processing. It's just, there's a narrative out there that wants to keep you sick. It
Mhm.
wants to keep you sad, and it wants to keep you in pain because you being that way validates some organizations and their positions, and they're here for you,
Right.
you know?
Oh, yeah. And I'm going to tell you again, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to get you home. And as my mantra, if you will, is simply that. I'm not going to make you feel good about your bad decisions and your bad behavior. What I'm going to help you do is change those so you have a better outlook and you have a better, outcome with your family and your job.
Long game.
I mean that. Listen, we can lie to each other all day. If I didn't care about my first responders, I would tell them that just to get accolades all day. Oh, it's the job, it's the job, it's the job. Being honest and responsible with our verbiage and telling them the truth. Sometimes we need to hear it. Is what saves lives.
That's what gets results.
Absolutely. We want to stop this from happening. Stop lying to people. Start telling them the truth so that we can change the behavior and the outcome.
Take some responsibility, some accountability, think the right way, act the right way. You're going to have a positive outcome.
Absolutely. And when you need help, we're here for you.
Always, always. If I'm a boss and I'm listening to you, and I think we could be doing a lot better job. We're hitting the mark some areas, but we're not.
Sure.
We're having a hard time putting it all together. How do I get in touch with you, and what do you do when you come in for us?
Sure. So we do consulting, needs assessment, and then we do training. Kind of a whole big picture item, if you will. We have a couple different things out. You can reach us at the Blue Wall Institute. You can just Google that. It pops up. My number is 618-791-9146. I also contract with a place called Responder Health, and they're doing some amazing things when we talk about predictive healthcare and wellness. So I say when we come in, we look at what's going on in your agency. We address some of the deficiencies that you're noting, and we look for other things that we can help you do. We take that fatal 10 and we lay it out as if it were separate trainings in general. And we look at where you're having issues. And that's where we really need to hit it. We offer some online stuff through Responder Health. We do in person. We can cover any of the issues you're facing in your agency. And we also measure these outcomes. So you're going to see when we come in, you're going to see changes down the road that you can measure. Yes.
Measurable changes.
Not feelings, but data.
And you're gonna on
Right.
the
I mean, if you
side,
want
you're
to
gonna
pay for
feel great
feelings, you can
about
pay
making
for
this
feelings, but
decision.
we want to see
Yeah,
change. And we know that
absolutely.
the agencies do too.
That's awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Olivia Johnson, thank you so much for spending time with us. I absolutely love talking with you, and I could listen to you all day. It's no bullshit, man. You cut right to the chase, and you're doing the work that a lot of people wish they could do. And for that, I thank you.
Thank you, John.